Salwete Miki. I know I'm a little later here today. Had some things going on. But North Korea has been a little bit in the news again, and I wanted to spend some time talking about North Korea. Particularly because it concerns me how much broad support there is from, I think, the left and the right for some kind of military intervention with the Kim Jong-un's regime. So I'll start by saying yes, actually, it seems reasonable on many levels, which is why it's scary. It's much more reasonable than any, invasion of, say, even Afghanistan or Iraq. It's the most obvious case of a regime change that, at least on face value, seems it's great for everyone, right? No one thinks, really, I mean, most everyone agrees that it's a terrible situation in North Korea. There's 25 million people, 24 of which are basically under the thumb of a small elite group of people, where they eat off the hard work and poverty of the masses. And there's no political freedom, there's barely any personal freedom, and punishment for breaking any type of law is egregious. I mean, if you commit something called political infidelity, your entire family, your immediate family, and some of your close relatives can be put in camps for 3 generations. It's outlandish. It's worse than 1984, and it's all driven by anti-American, anti-Western propaganda and paranoia. And not to mention the fact that, they're brutalizing their own people. Typically the world is fine with countries that brutalize their own people, as long as they don't, serve as a threat to people around them, or namely the United States. Well, North Korea has made the mistake of being a threat to the United States, its immediate neighbors, South Korea and Japan. It's even gotten to the point where China is somewhat uncomfortable with North Korea with their, what people think are 10 nuclear weapons. So it seems to most Americans, even people who are typically very against American ventures into different states, like a good idea that, hey, you know what, this guy's so bad, maybe this is something we can all get behind, let's take him out, let's do something good for the world. Which is a terrible mindset. There are reasons that China and South Korea and Japan as well, though not as kind of openly against regime change, there are reasons these places are not interested in it. First of all, the immediate effect of toppling the North Korean regime will be, one of many immediate effects, will be, 20, 25 million people fleeing to China and fleeing to South Korea, and the impossible task, particularly with South Korea, of integrating the Korean peninsula, if that would even be what happens. You never actually know what is going to happen when you go in and you take out a sovereign state and its entire leadership. Secondly, there's the massive potential of Seoul being somewhat blasted to smithereens by millions of by tons of nasty artillery and rockets fired from right across the border in North Korea. People will die in South... Well, maybe, the missile shield could be quite effective. I don't know. But it's certainly isn't going to be perfect. These things never are. And even if the loss of life on the South Korean side isn't, catastrophic, the refugee problem is going to be a nightmare. It's going to, particularly just the human cost and the economic cost is going to be a disaster, and they're not interested in it. And so I think it's just, from my standpoint, jumping, what would even, so if the U.S. goes in there and takes out the North Korean regime, what obligations are we going to have in the aftermath? Right, because whenever this happens, the U.S., I suppose rightfully so, decides to pick up some of the slack in the aftermath, because they should, since they went in there and made a mess of everything in the first place. When you leave after you've basically broken, the toy, the country, whatever, something like ISIS pops up. So it's not like the U.S. can simply just go in there, knock the regime over, and say, "Here you go, South Korea, China, our hands clean. We did the work. Have fun, guys." That's not going to work. That's not a reality. And who knows how many diehards might, still even want to fight for North Korea. There's so many ways this could go wrong. And there's so much human life. And there's so much money that this would cost. And unfortunately, you can see the mainstream, the legacy media get right behind it. The Washington Post was, banging the war drums just last weekend over Otto Warmbier and the awful way he was treated. And it's understandable. It's understandable to be mad. It's understandable to want to get rid of this brutalizing regime. But these ventures always have a high cost. And for my 2 cents, it's not worth it. As bad as North Korea is. Alright, guys, so there you have it.